Hello, everyone, and welcome to another glorious day in the African bush, however virtual. But isn't that nice? We get to have access and watch these wonderful animals no matter where you are in the world. So, welcome everyone to Live at the Waterhole. We are very excited to have you all on board. It's me, Trishala, and I will be with you for the next 2 hours. We'll go through the different cameras, and we're starting off right here at Onguma in Namibia. It's very close to Etosha National Park. You might be more familiar with the Ukukuyu waterhole. So, looking at a similar environment, but it's nice to get a different waterhole and a different perspective. Now, as usual, remember that we're live and interactive, so you can send through questions and comments. I'd love to hear from all of you. This is, at least for this month, this is the last Live at the Waterhole I will have with all of you. And soon, either Ralph or Amy or Carrie, one of our other lovely naturalists, will take over. If you want to send through questions and comments, you can head over to our website and register. You might have also seen the QR code pop up there. You can scan that. If you want to keep up with the conversation, you can head over to Twitter or X and use that hashtag WildEarth. And if you are in the YouTube chat stream, remember to use @FC to get your questions through. We have none other than Jarrett in the director's seat today. And he is very excited to be at Onguma because he hasn't seen it before. So it's very special. Now we've got some wildebeest on the left, some warthogs taking a little peruse around the waterhole too, and these wonderful elephants on the right. Though I encourage you to send through any questions and comments that you have, we have such wonderful discussions. At the same time, Live at the Waterhole is about relaxing and taking it easy and slowing the pace down. Maybe you've had a busy day and you've given yourself this little window to spend time in nature. Then take Live at the Waterhole as that, an opportunity to relax and just enjoy the different sights and sounds. Oh, Catherine's already on board, and you say hello to me and to everyone in FC. And Jive Bunny also says good morning from a very hot UK. You finally got some summer. Nice. I am sitting in Cape Town where I can barely see out my window because it's raining so hard. And it's very cold. So this is extra special for me, sitting and doing Live at the Waterhole, because the majority of the cameras that we have spread across Africa are all in areas where things are quite warm. Here in Namibia or near Etosha National Park, whether it's Okokoyo or here at Onguma, it's particularly semi-arid, so they're not getting a ton of rainfall anyway. But our other cameras, the majority are placed around the low veld, where they're getting nice and warm winters, even though it's dry, and definitely cooler than you would expect in summer. But I guarantee you a lot more pleasant than here in Cape Town at the moment. Catherine, you say you've been to Onguma before. That's really, really nice. You seem to have been quite extensive in your travels here in Africa, which is lovely. And I love that you still come on board, and when you're not able to travel, you're giving yourself the opportunity to still be around wildlife, learn about wildlife. I think it's great. The more people that can enjoy our wildlife, the better. Because though it may start with just, oh, this is interesting, oh, these elephants look cool, that eventually starts to turn into care and empathy and interest and curiosity. And that's what makes us effective conservationists. I see one elephant right in front of us that's missing his left tusk, but I think that his left tusk looks like it's broken. but broken very close to the face. I'd love to know what you all would like to see for Live at the Waterhole. Which waterhole was your favorite? I'll let you all pick favorites. You might not want to say, but it's okay. This is a safe space. I can tell you what I'm hoping to see today. I, since we saw the cheetah at Simbavati Waterside, I was hoping we'd get a glimpse of the cheetah again. But then as we go through the cameras, I'm going to have a look at what the weather is like. If it's overcast, I'm really hoping that we see a leopard. That would be really nice. Oh no, Ellie, are you chasing these wildebeest? I think the wildebeest are actually moving on their own, but the elephant decided that this is a great opportunity to show them who's boss. Hi, Devin. Devin, you'd like to know, would these elephants be different in any way to the ones that we see in Juma? No, these are. Oh, actually, it's not a very simple answer. The short version of it is theoretically no, because they're both savanna elephants. They don't have sufficient distance between them to be subspecies or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that there aren't slight genetic differences within the population. Populations of animals that are of the same species that become isolated, you have traits that become more pronounced in different populations, but that's not enough to call them a subspecies or a different species. But sometimes we notice things that are different. For example, in East Africa, where we have the El Doño camera, many of the animals just appear to be bigger in general. Now, that may be linked to resource availability and things like that, but essentially, since it seems to be a pretty consistent trend, if you ask any of the guides that you come across, it must mean that the environment is affecting the population towards larger growth. But Devon, theoretically, no, there's no difference between the elephants we see here and the elephants we see in Juma in South Africa. And theoretically, there's no difference between the elephants that we see in Oldonyo in East Africa compared to here in South Africa. There are only two species of African elephants, and the very secretive forest elephant, you'd be lucky if you are able to see one of them. They hang out in the very dense forests of areas like the Congo and Gabon. Maybe one day, if we're lucky, we can get a camera there too. Really nice, peaceful scenes to get us started during Live at the Waterhole today. Now, Spats, you say that these elephants look like those in Etosha? Well, they would. And so the ones in Etosha would also look like the ones in Juma and the ones in other areas. But also remember that Etosha National Park is fenced and Onguma is just at the edge of it. As far as I know, it's not actually in Etosha National Park. So the elephants wouldn't be able to move freely. I am going to double check though if Onguma is in Etosha National Park or not, but I'm pretty sure it's not. It's just at the edge, almost sharing a fence line kind of thing. Oh, and we have a giraffe in the distance. This is one of the things that I love about the vastness of areas in Namibia and reserves in Namibia. They don't have a whole lot of dense bush or tall trees. Yes, I mean, they're sporadically placed around the area, but you can see for such a distance. And there's something that just scratches an itch for me to be able to see animals at a distance. Bundu, hi, you say there's the fence for Etosha. It actually might be because Onguma is not in Etosha National Park, but it is right by the fence line, and it's very close to Etosha Pan. So maybe that's what we're seeing in the distance there on the other side of the fence. And off goes our giraffe. All right, let's head over to Tembe Elephant Park in northern KwaZulu Natal and see how the elephants are doing further down south. Oh, the sounds of Tembe. Oh, it's so nice. Oh, as we do checks and things before the show starts, we have a look at the different cameras, figure out what's happening, things like that. And something about when I saw Tembe during our checks, it just looks so bright, almost spring like, and the sounds make it feel spring like too. There was a lot happening. There were elephants all around, spread out, some drinking, some eating, some just enjoying the shade. And the impalas were also having a good go at everything around them. Now, interestingly, you'd be able to see that the impalas are actually eating grass there. And the elephants would be doing the same in this area because there are actually patches of green grass. Now, at a time in the dry season when there is, even though there are a lot of trees that are green, the trees are going to release a lot of defensive chemicals, and that can disrupt the digestive processes of herbivores. So if you can come across some fresh green grass, and you happen to be a mixed feeder, it's a great option. A nice group of Nyala as well. We are very lucky to see quite a few Nyala in these areas, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, where it's particularly bushy. Nyalas love good cover. This whole area here at Tembe just feels like a paradise, particularly this view that we have. And that's because KwaZulu-Natal does experience a lot of rainfall. It's tropical, so it always looks like it's resource rich. And so it always looks like the animals are having a good time. I completely agree, Nathan. It definitely is a paradise here at Tembe. So much of everything. Good amount of space, water, foliage, and grass. So earlier we were at the Onguma waterhole, very close to Etosha National Park, right on the fence line there. And Jacob, you were saying that those are really interesting termite mounds that we saw in that area. And then Jive Bunny was also asking about those. Are those enormous anthills? No, those are termite mounds. Now, in Namibia, I'm not totally familiar with the types of termites that they have there, but I do know that there's four different species that are the most prominent, and all of them belong to the Macrotermes genus. And Macrotermes usually, or the genus itself, are species, or within it are species that use fungal gardens. So they have a relationship with termitomyces, which is a type of fungus. So they're fungus growing termites. So basically, all those termites that are in the Macrotermes genus have fungus gardens. So we could have been looking at Onguma, at one of the most well researched and very well known termite species, the Macrotermes natalensis. But there are three other smaller or not as well known species that also exist in Namibia. Either way, the mounds that we were looking at were termites, and they would have been fungus growing termites belonging to the genus Macrotermes. Gary H., that's a really interesting thought. And I can't say I have or I feel the same. So Gary says that desert animals seem bigger and tougher than their counterparts in more lush areas. Maybe tougher, but bigger, I'm not sure about. If we think about drier areas, less rainfall, higher temperatures, it would actually make sense that animals would be smaller in order to thrive in those environments. And that's because the smaller you are, the higher surface area to volume ratio you have, which means that you are able to dissipate heat loss or dissipate heat better. And that smaller body basically, yeah, facilitates greater heat loss. And that's important because if you're very hot, many processes in your body start to fail. So, being able to thermoregulate effectively is critical to an animal's survival. So, in desert areas, you get lots of smaller animals, lots of arthropods, of course, um, lots of small mammals like shrews and other rodents. And their body size is very well suited to that kind of environment. Now, if we think about the elephants that we're watching right now, they have a low surface area to volume ratio. So basically, they have less surface area compared to the volume. They have a too much volume going on, as we know, and that makes it really difficult to cool down. Kind of think of it like putting something in a microwave. I don't want you to think about putting elephants in a microwave, but if you have a big chunk of meat and you put it in the microwave and it's a square, the center of it, if you put it in for 30 seconds, the center of it is not going to be warm. And that's because it has a low surface area to volume ratio. If, however, you cut it really thin, you would be increasing that surface area to volume ratio, and that means that it would be able to heat up all the way. Now, elephants, they struggle a little bit with this low surface area to volume ratio. But in their case, because we know that mass also means heat, they struggle to dissipate heat, which is why we always see them making their ways towards waterholes, throwing mud in themselves, trying to assist in that cooling down of their bodies. But I think, Gary, also, here I'm talking more about deserts and truly arid areas. But in semi arid areas, there's many animals can still survive, even if they're not very small to help with heat. If we think about how animals exist, think even about how you exist. You are not at the extreme end of what your body can handle. You are very likely going to be able to deal with more dehydration than you are right now, more sun exposure, less food. You're not living at the edge of what your body can do. And the majority of animals aren't living at that edge. But there are areas in the world, particularly at the poles and at the equator, where many animals are living towards the end of what they can actually put up with. But in those semi arid areas, they're still very much within what is doable for them. The problem is that when there are changes in severe weather, or changes in the climate, things like that that come along, it can push those animals who are already living in an extreme state over the edge, essentially, and an environment can become inhospitable. Now, I've found, more to your question or more to your comment, that animals that are in lush areas or resource rich areas seem to be a little larger. And I'm going on what I know of the animals in East Africa. But again, it comes down to so many things. It's really not as simple as that, you know? So many things. What is their genetics in that population like? Is there another driver for size? Could it be sexual selection that's driving the size? And it just so happens that the environment can support that size. There are so many things that come into play. And many, it's kind of all mixed up. I'm thinking now of like in islands. On islands, you get two different rules that seem to completely contradict themselves. Sometimes in islands, you get really, really large animals. That's where you can see giant so and so's, giant tortoise. But that's also where you see incredibly tiny things and like very tiny chameleons that you'd see in Madagascar or pygmy hippos. I guess what I am getting at is that these things are nuanced. There's so many subtleties that come into play, but it is so interesting. All right, how about we take a trip to Tau in Madikwe Game Reserve? A very different environment. So, a very, very different looking environment to what we had on the east coast of South Africa there at Tembe Elephant Park, northern KwaZulu Natal. A lot more rainfall there, different soil types, even. Now, there at Tembe, I don't exactly know what the soil types is, but it's almost a good thing because there's so much cover on the ground that it's hard to look at the soil properly. But here at Madikwe, at Tau, lots of spots are bare and you can really see what the soil looks like. But again, talking about the way that animals exist and whether you are existing at the extreme cusp of what your body is able to do, or whether you're somewhere in the middle, or whether you have a lot more to give. Talking about that and looking at the different environments, at Tau, we're still getting elephants, we're still getting wonderful birds, we're still getting zebra, we're still getting impala. So the different environments, the different levels of rainfall, the different types of grasses, soil types, all of them are still able to support similar kinds of life. Oh, and a magnificent crocodile in the middle there. nice big elephant ball coming down as well. Now, Mindy, you were saying that when you were in Kenya, you saw a termite mounds, or you saw termite mounds in general that were over 4 feet tall. Maybe you meant 4 meters? 4 feet tall is impressive, but definitely not by termite mound size. Termite mounds can be huge. I am not a very tall person myself. I am taller than the termite mound, though, that you saw, Mindy. I'll tell you that much. But maybe you meant 4 meters. So the recorded largest termite mound in Africa, I think, is about 12 and a half or 13 meters tall. Can you imagine that? There's a couple in the Sabi Sand that are huge, far taller than me. I would say they're probably about 3 meters, maybe even a little more. But termite mounds get huge. Can you imagine a 12, 13-meter termite mound? It is huge. Oh, hi, Susie C. You are here with me in the rainy and cold Cape. But you come back from a dry Addo and Amakala. Oh, I hope you had a nice visit there. I'm sure it was very chilly, and though you could have escaped the rain, I'm sure there was a lot of wind too. But we just saw the zebras, and there's still one in the back there. But you were wondering that dark oval marking on the inside of their front legs. What are those? So those are really interesting, and it's something that you see across um, equids. So you see it in horses, you see it in donkeys, and you see it in zebras, and those are called chestnuts. Now, I think that zebras, you only see it on the front legs. You don't see it, they don't have them on the back legs. We can try and find it, but I think the zebras would have to be pretty close for us to see it. But those oval dark markings, well, not really a marking, but they're called chestnuts. They're kind of calloused skin. And the exact reason for them or their purpose is unknown. They could be a vestigial part of their anatomy that had links to maybe old toes back when zebras had additional toes. Zebras are odd-toed ungulates. So that hoof is essentially just one toe. So it could be that the chestnut is a vestigial toe from long ago. It could be a vestigial gland. Oh, there we go. There we can see it now on that individual that's just walked in. And now it's blocking it with the other leg. But as it moves, just look on the inside of the front legs and you'll see that little oval black marking. As far as we know, those chestnuts don't currently operate as any kind of gland. But the shape of it and things like that might be able to help zebras in identifying individuals. We don't know, but because it's a basically calloused skin, it's constantly peeling and exfoliating and growing, so it changes over time. But the most likely explanation at the moment is that it's some kind of vestigial part. But I'm not totally familiar with horses, and I know that a lot of viewers are. So if you know something about horse chestnuts that maybe you've seen in your horses or things like that, we would love to know. Maybe you've smelt them. If you have smelt your horse's chestnut, I need to know. Hi, Lodge. You want to know a little bit more about the crocodiles? We saw a really nice crocodile here at Tao earlier. Maybe that's what prompted your question. But you wanted to know since crocodiles don't often stay at the same pan their whole lives, particularly when they're young, they're constantly moving from one pan to another. When they're older, they tend to settle down. But even then, if there's some kind of dispute, they're going to need to move. And you're wondering, would they be easy prey for lions as they move? And have I seen them move from one pan to another during the drives? I haven't, but I was very lucky because it was something I really wanted to see. And I think when I asked viewers on Drive about it, and I said I really wanted to see it, only a couple days later on the dam cam, the dam cam, it was seen, and many viewers had sent it to me. But lions are very, very curious, and they will harass animals that they see just around. It doesn't necessarily have to be just their typical prey. So if they see a crocodile out in the open and walking from, well, yeah, on the ground, they don't necessarily know they're walking from pan to pan. But if lions see that, they are going to become curious about the crocodile. They are going to try and have a go at it. But you will find that generally, after a little pawing and things like that, they're going to leave it alone. It doesn't always happen though. I've seen many a video and very many a clip where lions do get a crocodile. And the important part is that the lions stay away from the front end of the crocodile, because as soon as anything gets into that crocodile's mouth, that is basically going to spell death for the lion. Huge amounts of force coming down when that jaw shuts. I said to you previously that the amount of force exerted by a crocodile's bite, a Nile crocodile's bite specifically, is not as straightforward as some of the other recordings that we know of. I've seen everything from about 3,000 psi to 5,000 psi. And to be safe, let's say it's the 3,000 psi. That is still a massive amount of force, and that would snap a lion's leg. And then if we include the death roll, it's basically going to spell the end of a lion. So lions are still going to be curious. They're still going to paw. They're still going to try and have a go at the crocodile. But they're also not stupid, and they're going to stay away from the crocodile's head. It was actually on one of these cameras. I can't remember which one. It might have been Kruger, Shalati, one of the Kruger cameras, and perhaps it was Oliphant's River. I can't remember. It was a while back, but lions had a kill very close to the river. And a crocodile came and was feeding on that kill too, and sharing it with the lions. When I say sharing it, I mean it in the most unemotional way. Empty sharing, one on one end and lions on the other end. But they were sharing it. The lions did look at the crocodile like, hey, what are you doing here? But they didn't actually try to chase it. And that was a super interesting sighting, because a hippo even walked past at one point, had a sniff at the carcass, moved on, hyenas came. It was really something special, because very often when we have a kill, we know that scavengers are going to come, it's going to attract other predators to come, but it doesn't often attract things from the water. And a kill right next to the water, crocodiles are going to come. It's going to be near the route of hippos. And we know that even if the hippo path doesn't cross where the kill is, the hippos are still going to be curious about it. So I suppose, Lodge, I've seen it virtually through the cameras, but I haven't had the opportunity to see a crocodile walking out of the pan and then taking a stroll, or being harassed by lions in real life. But it does happen. Very nice. A whole lot of illies. There's so much mud. It's hard for them to find a spot where they can just get into some nice water for drinking. But that's okay because if you can't drink the water, at least you can get some mud on you. There are other spots like further down at the end there where it's not as muddy. Be a good place to drink, and that's what they're doing. But down on this end, it looks like it's all about that mud. Oh, I love this. Get down into that mud. Yes. When they get excited like this and comfortable, these are the best Ellie sightings. Sometimes they can get a bit too raucous, too energetic, and then they suddenly get spooked by the movement of a crocodile. Oh, look at this! That's a great way to get the mud onto the belly without having to get too low. Now, this little baby is having the time of its life, but I'd like you to pay attention to the older individual next to the baby, possibly this baby's mama. She's going to have to get up soon, and I want you to watch the way in which she does that. Being such bulky animals and not particularly flexible or agile, they take a lot of effort to get back up from that kind of position. And I suppose it doesn't help if you're in slippery mud. But this baby is doing very well. So they try to lift themselves up by picking their heads up and then throwing their trunks up in the air. Try and build some momentum. Oh, Mum did very well. Mum did the logical thing and just bent her legs and picked herself up. Baby is still learning. But adults also struggle, and you see the picking up of the head and the flailing of the trunk. Oh, and now the group that went to have a drink earlier is coming down for the muddy section of the waterhole. Hannah, you say this mud could be dangerous for them. In a way, there have definitely been a few calves that have been not stuck in the mud, but they kind of slip. And particularly, they slip down into the waterhole. But the herd is always around and someone's there to help them. And you find that the baby panics more than the rest of the herd. The baby panics, then the mum panics, and then the rest of the herd comes through and everyone helps to take the baby out. But getting stuck in the mud is not something we've seen here at Tal. We have seen them slip down though, but they always make it out. With a little bit of distress, of course. Now, this sand here is very fine. There's some portions, of course, that aren't very fine, but if you look at the color of the mud, it's very dark. And these dark clay-like soils are very, very slippery. But they're also really good if you want to plaster yourself with mud. They last longer and they get into all those small cracks in their bodies. So this is perfect mud for them. And as long as the calves have the rest of the herd around, they'll be totally fine. The crocodiles here at Tau have been really active the last couple times we've visited. Yesterday as well, it might have been the day before. Oh, I think this crocodile might be getting irritated with the elephants. It's happened before. There was a crocodile at the Victoria Falls waterhole that had a very big bee in its bonnet about elephants and was actively attacking them. There's no other way to say it. Going right for elephants' trunks, going for their feet, sneaking up on them as they were drinking. But that crocodile seems to have calmed down now, and it's also not something I've seen. It almost seemed to have some kind of vendetta against the elephants, and only the elephants. It wasn't attacking the other large animals that were coming to the waterhole, like the buffalo. But most of the time, crocodiles will move well out of the way of elephants near a waterhole. But in areas where an altercation is unavoidable, unfortunately, trunks, the ends of trunks, do get snapped off by crocodiles. Caden, I love the same thing. There's such joy with elephants at a waterhole. Whether they're drinking or they're splashing around or they're mud bathing, there's just so much joy. Well, off go our elephants, and at the beginning of Live at the Waterhole, I asked you all, which is your favorite waterhole? This is a safe space. You can say what it is. And you all had a similar one to me. Old Punkster, you said Old Donyo. Catherine, you said Old Donyo. Lenny, you said Old Donyo. And where are we heading? Up to Old Donyo. Oh, the sounds at this waterhole, and can you believe it? There aren't any elephants for now, but we have a wonderful herd of eland and some giraffe. It's always nice to see other animals getting a chance to have a drink here at El Doño. It's one of the waterholes that I can really get sucked into because of the sound and the position of the camera. I just love it. So keep your questions coming. Remember that we are live and I'm here to answer any of those questions that you have. Well, is an elephant coming? Like I said, I am here to answer any of the questions that you have, but let's sink into these sounds. The giraffes seem quite unsure about something. Let's have a look to the left. Hmm, no elephant. At least not within our view, but maybe there's one coming. I feel like the animals at Old Donyo, besides the elephants, have a little bit of PTSD from all the elephants around and the way they get bullied. So maybe they're very reactive. Maybe there's something in the water. We'll just have to wait and see what's causing all this tension. Oh, this is quite strange, but perhaps there are some people in the hide that are causing them to react. But usually, when there are people in the hide, we can hear them. And I'm not hearing anything except normal wildlife sounds. Oh, I love it when this happens. We're so focused at looking at the animal in the center of our screen, and then someone just shows up, pokes its head into our view. Not its head. I suppose if you're a giraffe, it's difficult for an average view for you to be able to poke your head in, but you can always poke your chest in. Oh, this is so lovely. A nice look at the giraffe's coat, all these oxpeckers on him. You can see those bald ossicones at the top, and that round little knob in front of them, too. So, Catherine, I was hoping that there would be some zebras here at the waterhole. Perhaps they've already been here because the water level has definitely gone down since yesterday. But you sent us some cool little information bits on those chestnuts on the zebra. And I hope this means that you have smelt your horse's chestnut. But you say chestnut fun facts. They don't have a specific smell, but they get soft when horses sweat. That is interesting. I wonder if, like, if you have a callus on your hands or something like that, if you sweat, you are moisturizing it. So maybe that helps to soften it. I wonder if it works in a similar way. And then you also say that there's a few breeds of horses, like the Icelandic horses, that don't have them at all. I think that the fact that there are some breeds that don't have those chestnuts at all, and the fact that zebras and I think donkeys as well, and you say wild asses as well, only have them on the front legs. I think both those things speak to the fact that they are vestigial. They're not something that's in use anymore, but possibly played a role in the past. But we don't know. We really don't know what the chestnuts are all about. And hopefully, if some zebras do come through to the old Donyo waterhole, we can get a good old nice close up of those chestnuts. Hi, Dutch Thea. You would like to know, could some lions kill a healthy giraffe? Yes, indeed, they could. They have to change their strategy a little bit. And when it comes to hunting, lions are amazing strategists. They can change their strategy for different types of animals. And as you can imagine, a giraffe is a very different type of animal. There's pretty much nothing that looks like it. Of course, it's related to the okapi, but we're not getting okapi here in Southern Africa. So there's nothing quite close to a giraffe. So the way that lions will hunt giraffes is that they will try to trip them. So, what that usually means is they'll try to chase giraffes into an area that's really rocky, into drainage lines, and cause them to trip. Because as soon as the giraffe falls, they are incredibly vulnerable because it takes effort for them to get up. And the lions would be on them immediately. And that's also why this drinking position is also fairly a fairly vulnerable one. They've got to splay their legs out. Sometimes they've got to bend to reach the water, and they're close to the ground and they can't see what's happening around them. But more than being able not being able to see as well, the biggest problem is they're not able to react as quickly. Bundu. I was afraid that may happen because you thought for a moment that chestnuts were euphemism for something else. I did have so Nadine is now in the director's seat with me, and she also came on after I was talking about the chestnuts and the zebra and the horses, thanks to Catherine. And she said, "Should I just Google this?" Chestnuts, everyone. The calloused dark ovals on the inside of the zebra's front legs. No euphemism, always the front legs, at least for zebras. I think this is the beginning of the craziness. Once one elephant comes through, you can certainly expect others to come through too. But this one's very calm. The giraffes are very chilled. No problems yet. But you know how it is with bullies, they get their strength from their friends. Not that I mean that elephants are bullies, but they can be bullies sometimes. They definitely like to show off how big and strong they are. So, speaking earlier about the vulnerability of giraffes as they drink, and I said that it's not just about not being able to see very well when you're coming down for a drink, but also the ability to react in an appropriate time for your survival. And so Spas was thinking, does that mean that giraffes have bad eyesight? No. So giraffes have very similar capabilities, visual capabilities, as most other mammals. So they have two color cones, green and blue. They're not able to detect reds very well. And the same goes for elephants, for antelope. But the problem, and it's something that actually elephants don't have a problem with, elephants can drink by not having to tilt their heads downwards. So they can put their trunk in their mouths and their heads can pretty much be the same at the same height, which means that they're not compromising being able to see what's happening around them by the fact that they've got to tilt their head down. So it's not the giraffe's eyesight that causes them not to be able to see well when they're having a drink, but it's the mere fact that they've got to get their head close to the water. And it's the same applies for antelope. So if we did the same, if you had to duck your head down to drink from a pool of water without your hands or a glass, your vision is obscured by what you're drinking and the environment right in front of you on the ground. So that makes it difficult to try and see what's happening at your body's length. Or if you had to hinge at your hips, what's happening at the height of your hips? It's hard to say. So it's not that their vision is bad, it's more that their field of view is compromised by the mere fact that they've got to put their heads down to drink. In general, herbivores have a good field of view because of the positioning of their eyes, but that offers a good field of view on the horizontal plane. So, what's happening vertically still has the ability to be compromised. Frank M., you say they need to find a bigger waterhole, right? I wish I knew more about this particular area or this particular property, the Great Plains Conservation Oldonyo area in Chiulu Hills, and knew where the different water points are, which I think would really help to inform us about why this waterhole, even though it's so small, seems to be so busy. Sandy Franklin, you'd like to know where's the tallest giraffe I've seen? Well, actually, from the giraffe subspecies, the ones that we're seeing right now are pretty much going to be the tallest. The Maasai giraffes are generally the tallest out of all the giraffe species. But when we're talking about giraffes and tallness and shortness, It's only a matter of a few centimeters because they are already so tall. But on average, the Maasai giraffe is the tallest of the subspecies. Oh, hi, Donna Marie. Thank you for joining us. I hope you have a blessed day too. Oh, some lovely views of the giraffe feet there. So the hooves, remember, are the toes. So the part that you were seeing sticking out just above the toes, those are kind of the balls of your feet. If we had to do it comparatively. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that does not look good. It's actually moving. I wonder if that's a bit of bone. It's actually moving as the giraffe moves as well. Okay, I'm just gonna have a close look at this and try to figure out what that is. Oh my goodness, that feels and looks very bony. It's got another injury at the bottom as well. Oh, that's very, very interesting. So that's actually its wrist area, right? So further up is its elbow, but that where that injury is the wrist area. Ooh. There are lots of smaller bones at that spot. But I feel if there was a bone jutting out of its wrist with all the weight being held by it wouldn't be able to use that leg. And there is surprisingly a low amount of swelling. It is more swollen than the other leg, but definitely less than I expected it to be. Oh, that's a little gory. Just having a bit of a scan on the rest of this giraffe's body to see if there's any other injury or something like that that could indicate what could have caused that problem. It's a female. Hello, girl. What happened? I'm wondering if it could have also, maybe it's not coming out of the body, but something that's gone into the body. Thank you, Nadine. Gonna have a, okay, no, it's not a female. It's just a young bull. Quite dark for a young bull at that. If we looked up at the ossicones earlier, they were quite slim and very hairy, which is what we normally see with females. But now you can see the penis sheath. Most definitely a male, but probably a young bull. Quite a dark young bull. What has gotten... Oh man, what has gotten into this poor thing? look at me. I'm also here. Why do those with the injuries always get the attention? I feel like that's what the giraffe that popped its neck in was probably thinking. I wonder, Nadine, if we could just zoom out a little bit. I want to see how it walks. It's taking a few steps here and there. I just want to see how it's walking. Thank you, Mr. Ellie. But we were kind of hoping to look at that giraffe's legs, not your quote unquote chestnuts. Those are not chestnuts, everyone. Just making fun. Mercedes, you say ouch. I know, that looked awful. What could have happened? I have no idea. I'm still not sure if that's bone sticking out. So there it goes walking in the distance, and it seems to be putting pressure just fine. It's now behind this elephant on the right's front legs. It seems to be putting pressure on that leg. Um, it's very difficult to see if an animal is in pain. They don't show it like we do, because if they show it, it shows vulnerability and it shows that you are weak. And that's a bad thing for a predator that could be around. It makes you an easy target. And Spas, you would like to know if I've ever seen, or how often have I seen giraffes with these kinds of injuries? This is the first time I've seen this kind of injury. I'm really not sure what could have happened there. I still don't know whether it's something jutting out of the giraffe or perhaps something has gone into the giraffe. Oh, from this angle you can see the swelling much better. Sandy Franklin, you'd like to know, will someone check its leg out? Quite possibly. Here at Great Plains Conservation, they do quite a lot of veterinary work. So they might come and check him out. But it also depends on the risk involved. So they've got to dart the animal, they've got to hope that it's responsive to the darting, got to hope that it's responsive to the waking concoction as well. So if I were them, I would probably monitor this giraffe for a few days and see how that injury is going. I'd probably send out a veterinary team to have a look at the injury to assess it before they dart the animal or anything like that. And then from there, decide whether it seems to be fine and whether darting it and treating it would just introduce another potential risk, another potential threat to the giraffe's survival. But over the next few days, I'm sure we'll know that. I do a lot of Africam work as well, and this Aldonio waterhole is an Africam camera. And so we are sometimes in contact with the lodges and things like that, and they give us reports if we ask questions. So I might next week ask Africam if they know what's happening with this giraffe. Cat fan, hello. Yes, poor giraffe indeed. I mean, I would love to have a closer look, but it is standing further back. I mean, I can see that it's ruminating. If you look closely, it's just swallowed. Another bit of cud will come up into its throat. There we go. And chewing, so he seems to be okay. But that injury looks very nasty. Absolutely, Razor Bear. You can see from this end it is much more swollen than it looked like previously. But I'm surprised at the weight being put onto it. Yes, that is 100% the exact type of thing they'll have to consider if they want to treat this giraffe, Catherine. Darting a giraffe is difficult and dangerous because they fall, and if they fall, they could cause serious injury to themselves. So it's not just the darting process. Once they a tranquilizer is sent to them, a team of people on the ground have to be sent after the giraffe as it's getting woozy to try and wrangle it so that they can soften its fall. So the whole process can be dangerous for the giraffe. So they'll just have to assess it and see what can be done. Now, luckily, it doesn't seem to be oozing and it's not terribly obvious. It seems to be walking fine. We know it's eating fine. We saw it chewing its cud. Um, and unless you're looking very closely, you're not going to see it. Now, these are important things because it can pretty much hide the injury from predators. The problem is that if it gets chased by a predator, that injury is going to show. Cat fan, you wonder if it's a cyst. I'm not sure if you were with us a little bit earlier when we were very close up into the injury. It almost looked like there was a hard piece of bone that was jutting out of that ankle joint. Either that or something poked into the ankle joint, but it didn't look cyst-like at all. Definitely something hard. Kind of looked like a broken bone sticking out, but I can't imagine how it would be able to put weight on it like that if it was a broken bone sticking out. Mindy, that's an excellent question. Well, we were talking about hooves a little earlier, and you wanted to know if I've ever seen overgrown hooves. No, I haven't. And I completely understand your reasoning as well, because animals are not, or hooved animals are not walking on hard surfaces that can naturally file down their hooves, or maintain them, I should say. But when they do walk around, they walk around on a lot of uneven surfaces. And I think that might help to exfoliate the hoof as well. But I've never seen an overgrown hoof. I've seen growths near hooves, but not the actual hoof overgrown. But again, just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean that there aren't animals around who have experienced that. Ooh, Nadine's giving us some good looks at the dry, crinkled skin of this elephant. Oh my goodness, doesn't it make you want to put some moisturizer on their skin? But this is exactly as it's meant to be. All these cracks and crevices are exactly what they need to trap as much moisture as possible around their very large bodies. Oh, that was a really nice close up, Nadine. Nadine's just giving us a nice scan around to see if we can spot any birds. Rage Bear says that one of these days you'll be on the vehicle too, Nadine. Yes, I'm sure we can make a space for you, Nadine. She would be an absolute hoot. I unfortunately haven't had the pleasure of having Nadine on the back of my vehicle yet. But at least I get to see her in Johannesburg. I don't think we're having very good luck with the birds. Nadine is showing us all her favorite things about Old Donio. She particularly likes these trees, and I think that that's a good shout. Very nice and wrinkly and pimply. I mean, if we were totally zoomed in, you might even say, oh, are we zoomed into an elephant? Perhaps not that particular spot. But tell me if we were zoomed in like this, you wouldn't think it was a dead elephant? And its eye? But Nadine says she's just waiting for something to pop out. And, you know, looking in holes from a safe distance is a great way to find interesting things when you're out in the bush. Don't ever put your hand in a hole in the bush, though. It's fun. So, Nadine, don't give up on searching the ground. But for now, we just have a couple minutes left, so we're going to spend time watching these elephants. The waterhole here was very chilled out today. And I definitely think it needs to be filled up again. Oh, we've had some really nice variety, and I must say it's been a pleasure over the last 2 weeks to be able to spend this time with all of you, going through the different cameras, having interesting discussions. I always, always enjoy it. And Oldonio remains a firm favorite. Well, thank you so much for joining us for Live at the Waterhole. I'm going to hand you over to the live team for On Safari. Bye for now.